Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Chinetsky. Today we are joined by two-time bodybuilding world champion and CEO of Core Nutritionals, Mr. Doug Miller. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
Wow, that was so formal. I got multiple titles there. That was great.
Yeah, man. We try to make it as legitimate as possible here on the show.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Well, people are probably familiar with your history and background of bodybuilding. I want to start from the beginnings of Core Nutritionals. At what point in your bodybuilding venture or business ventures did you decide to jump into the fitness space and start your own brand full time?
So, I graduated college in 2001, a long time ago. And when I left school, I was doing economic litigation consulting in DC. So it was a lot of programming, a lot of long hours. It's a crazy busy job. And at the same time, I was really getting into bodybuilding. And so I wasn't happy with the products on the market at the time. And so one of the products I used a lot was EAS Myoplex. I don't know if you remember that from back in the day, the packets filled with maltodextrin and like some cheap protein blend.
Yep.
And so I use them every day just because of my busy schedule. And so that was kind of like my final straw when I just got sick and tired of using that product. It was just an inferior product. There was nothing on the market out there that in terms of a meal replacement that I wanted to take. So when I first started the business, I actually had a business partner. So we took a total of $20,000 of our own money, $10,000 each, and invested in our first product. We started Core Nutritionals, invested in the first product, and that was Core MRP. And so that was a meal replacement based on oat and barley flour, slower digesting carbs, really good quality blend of protein. And at the end of the day, I was creating products around what I wanted to use. And if other people wanted to use it too, that's great. And so that's kind of been my approach to creating supplements all along. And even to this day, really, creating the best products out there and things that I personally want to use. And so, the brand started, we were distributing out of a basement in a small supplement store from Cape Cod and another one in Pittsburgh. The lady in Pittsburgh who had maybe, I think, 500 units or something of it, she never paid us. So we lost half our money on the first run. I think we ran 1,000 units to start. But we just kept on investing every, penny right back into the company. And then, about a year into it, I bought out my business partner. There was a lot of things going on in his life, so he wasn't interested. And then we started coming out with more products. And then we came out with our post-workout, and it just started to grow as I became more successful in natural bodybuilding. It kind of, grew through, that outlet. And then it was probably not until 2013 when I decided, okay, I got a lot of stuff going on. I threw away the golden handcuffs. It was a great job that I had in consulting, and it was very hard to leave, but I was given a promise that I could come back if all my ventures failed. And my boss was really cool at the time. He basically said, just go, you always have a job here. Like, follow your passion, and 6 months from now you're going to wish you did this 5 years ago. And that was true, because I did consulting for about 12 years and was building the businesses on the side, both the retail stores that we own and the supplement brand. So that's kind of like the quick overview of how the brands came to be.
Now, were you married at this time when you were making the transition from the corporate life to the supplement industry? And how was that interplay? Because when I was making the jump from engineering into going into the fitness industry, my wife was really pivotal in giving me the kick in the ass, because I didn't want to give up the stability and security of engineering for who knows what in the hell is going to happen in the industry. Did any of that play into your lives?
So we were married in 2006. So she's been along for the entire ride, and she was a very active, one of the most highly sought after personal trainers in the area. And she was already kind of doing her own thing, and I was helping her with that. And, she knew I would make the right decision. It wasn't like a push. It wasn't, necessarily, I think she trusted me all along, and she was completely supportive of it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the decision, it was actually right after I found out that she was pregnant with our first son. So it was even kind of like I was thinking about doing it. And this is in 2013. Our son was born in February 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So we found out in like May or something like that. And then July, I quit my job. And so part of my thinking was, yeah, no, kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
The stability of it, and the full health benefits and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, I was watching all of my colleagues who were having wives and kids. And I mean, we literally would work, 80-hour weeks for weeks on end, right? So I was working, and, I would work like a normal shift. Like, I'd work like a 7:30 or 8 o'clock to 5. I would go train, and then I'd come back and work like another, 6 hours.
Damn.
It was kind of crazy. So
long days.
I didn't want to raise my kids, in that lifestyle. I was commuting into DC, and
mm-hmm.
man, I don't even know how somebody could really raise kids in that time. So that actually kind of, believe it or not, pushed me over the edge. I knew we were going to be fine, like financially.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, people probably thought I was crazy for doing that.
What were some of the early challenges you faced getting Core running up off the ground? As far as maybe vetting manufacturers, did you have connections either through the bodybuilding industry, or had you made other connections within the supplement industry to get things going?
I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. And literally, we made every mistake in the book. So literally it was, I mean, this was, 15 plus years ago, that the information is just not out there. It was just not out there back then than it is today.
Right.
Same with like when I got into bodybuilding in early 2000, like I had to figure everything out myself. And so there was a lot of internet research, and it was just talking to people who know people. And it was just, excuse me, I had to literally figure out everything. And that to this day, that is, people ask me a lot of times, like, what do you look for in people to come to work for you?
Mm-hmm.
And my number one thing is, I'm not easily impressed with Ivy League educations. I'm not even, like all these fancy degrees, all that stuff. At the end of the day, I need people that know how to figure things out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know how to do something, that's totally fine. But you have to understand how to use Google, how to use YouTube, how to use, whatever to figure it out. And those are the people that have done, really well working for me. So, yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a crazy ride.
Yeah. Common sense and critical thinking are superpowers these days. It seems like everybody wants something handed to them, or they lack the initiative to figure things out or work through the slight hurdles.
Yeah. I mean, and, there's a lot of stuff that I think, we do now that we've learned over the years, that I would say that probably 95% of the supplement brands out there just don't do, from, and that we didn't do when we first started, right? Like, I'm not writing certain FDA SOPs and all these, things. Like, we didn't have that when we had one product in someone's basement.
Yeah.
And now it's, at a whole different level, and we take all of that compliance and doing everything right, very seriously. And so, again, all that stuff was kind of learned through time, and obviously now, it took us probably, so when we launched Core, and then we launched Merica Labz, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute. We launched that in 2017. I did more in revenue in the first year of Merica Labz than I did in the first 7 years combined at Core.
Wow.
And then when we started Arms Race, this past year, I did double what we did in Merica Labz in half the time from when we first started. So it's not necessarily because, the brand is that much stronger, all that. It's just all our connections and all the things we've learned through the years are now much easier to implement in, like launching a brand. So it's a lot easier today, than it was back then, because I didn't really have a mentor in the supplement industry, like somebody who could guide me along the way.
Yeah. How is the the supplement use in the natural bodybuilding crowd? I mean, do you find a lot of the top tier natural bodybuilders use a lot of supplements, or is it more of that?
Yeah, most of them are using core.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know like Paul Revelia uses a good bit, and I've heard several of the other top guys use it too. So
I think you get people on both ends of the spectrum. I think you have people like myself, people like Kurt Widener, who's like one of our athletes, and you got people like, Paul Revelia, and some of these other people that really understand and know the benefits that good supplementation on top of excellent training, excellent nutrition, good genetics, all of that, what it can really do. And so I think there are definitely at least when you're looking at the top pros, I would say the majority of them are using a decent amount of supplements. Mm-hmm. Now, then you have just like the uber freaks, right, that just will be jacked even if they didn't even work out, right? Like I'd be about 140 pounds and skinny if I didn't, train and eat. But there's some guys that are just naturally, enormous.
Yeah.
Crazy muscle bellies, just crazy genetics. And some of those guys, they don't even touch it, And now what I'll say is, I truly believe that if you have your supplementation on point, it can make the difference when you're talking about the elite level, because everyone's going to look great. Everyone's going to have shredded glutes. Everyone's going to have, some of it will come down to genetics and like your structure, but you can tell the people that really have the details dialed in, and, it might make a 5 to 10% difference. And even if we say stick with 5, that's a massive difference when you're, splitting hairs.
Right.
So, I know I'm definitely of the camp that I take a ton of supplements, competing or not competing.
Mm-hmm. Has anything changed dramatically from when you first started dabbling with supplements to what your protocols are for today, as far as ingredients you may have thought were beneficial at the time, but in retrospect, they weren't really doing a whole heck of a lot?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I don't know if you remember beef liver tabs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was pounding, 20 beef liver tabs a day, and a lot of the old school things, a ton of glutamine, stuff that, whether or not oral glutamine supplementation is going to do anything is iffy at best, right?
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's, with science, with the development of new product, with the development of branded products, where there's a lot of research that goes into, specific ingredients. Yeah, I mean, things have completely changed, through the years. And, I obviously, being that I'm in the industry, I try to keep up with all of that. So, yeah, my supplementation has always been heavy, but it's definitely shifted away from, I have a lot of, not only just because new science has come out, I have a lot of real world experience in using, all the stuff that doesn't work, right, as well. So, I've kind of through the years have added things in and taken things away because of that.
Mm-hmm. Every year, the industry gets flooded with new ingredients, and there's this excitement and anticipation to be one of the first people to include it or get the naming rights and say, hey, we were the first one to use this ingredient and do that. How much of a body of evidence do you and the core team need to see on one of these new ingredients before you even think about putting it in a product? Because most of the time, a lot of these new things will either be one study in like 4 people, or it'll be just in rats, and then it gets blown up into the next big thing.
So I don't think I have a set answer for that, right? A lot of it comes, I think it's a combination of it. Like, I'm going to want to use it myself and see if I, feel anything from it, right? And I think a lot of this is I would think today, I think a lot of this stuff can come down to nootropics and pump ingredients, if I'm thinking about this. And so I always love to use it myself. I mean, obviously having the data to fall back on is really important, because then you can necessarily, potentially make certain claims that you otherwise couldn't.
Right.
So, and at the end of the day, our ingredients our formulas are pretty complex. So, straightforward yet complex, right? Like a pre-workout is going to have 10 different ingredients in it. So whether or not you're going to really necessarily tell the difference of using a certain branded ingredient in there when you have already 4 pump ingredients,
right?
Some of it is, it's because it's coming from a trusted ingredient supplier, and it might have some good marketing around it. But at the end of the day, for me, I really want to feel the product, right? So it's a
Yeah.
combination of everything. It's like, and there is really a race to be one of the earlier adopters of really good ingredients, right?
Yep.
So I understand that, but I balance all of that, right? Like,
Hmm.
so it's like, how do I personally feel from it? Is there real scientific studies where I can make marketing claims? Do I trust and do I have an existing relationship with the ingredient supplier already, right? So it's kind of a combination of all of those things that have to be weighed out really on a case by case basis. I think it's hard, to really um, either talk bad or talk great about certain ingredients when most of the products on the market that are using them have 10 other ingredients in there. So it's
Right.
like how can you really say it is or isn't doing anything like that? So I think you really kind of have to weigh it from all the different angles.
Hmm. Well said. Speaking of pre-workouts, how do y'all go about deciding? I mean, for a while there was like an arms race for citrulline dosages and caffeine to where you were constantly escalating. We saw 3 grams of citrulline and then 4 grams, and now we're seeing upwards of like 8 or 10 grams of citrulline in some products. And
Yeah.
then caffeine has been everywhere from where like 200 used to kind of be the base mark to where we're getting up into like the 600s and 700s now. Is that based on customer feedback? What you personally like to use? Are you basing it off like a milligram per kilogram kind of dosing?
Yes. Again, it's one of those things. I mean, a lot of formulation, obviously there's a lot of science involved, but a lot of it is an art,
Yeah.
and I think there are some people that will formulate, more is always better, and that's just not the case,
Hmm.
right? Like it's actually irresponsible because you think you might be doing something to benefit your customers, but at the end of the day, you're not, because then you're going to have to price your product $4 higher because of the extra gram or two of citrulline,
Hmm.
which they're really not going to notice the difference.
Correct.
So again, just like in weighing using a trademarked ingredient or a new novel trademarked ingredient, the overall formulation has to be a process, especially in something as important as a pre-workout in terms of feeling it quickly, right? Like
Hmm.
you'll know within the first couple times, did you hit the mark? There really has to be intensive beta testing of your own, right? So obviously you're going to want to hit certain benchmarks because the way the industry works today, and it's a lot different today than it was back in the day when I started.
Right.
We were really one of the first ones on the market using non-proprietary blends, using efficacious doses. These are all things that myself and NutriBio, but they weren't necessarily even like I didn't really know them in the sports nutrition world back then.
Correct.
We were some of the first people on the market doing that, and now that is a bar that that's the bare minimum, right? Like there's a lot of great formulas out there, so
Yeah.
you have to hit certain numbers in terms of just to kind of clear that bar,
Hmm.
and then anything over that is really you should be doing beta testing, and especially with our Core Fury, which I mean, obviously, I'm completely biased. I feel like we knocked that sucker out of the park. In terms of overall feel, it is a premium product in terms of price point at $45, probably
Hmm.
because there's a lot of cheap pre-workouts out there. But for what you're getting for $45, we think it's a great value. We didn't put a bunch of stuff in there that is unneeded, although there are, like 10 ingredients in it. But we tested and tested and tested. We came up with 375 milligrams of caffeine. That's kind of a weird number, but that's because we didn't get quite enough at 325 and 350, and we didn't
Hmm.
want to be one of the 450 junkies, out there, which there is a market for. But
Right.
for us, we test a lot.
Hmm.
We beta test just about everything extensively, except for probably proteins is more of a just nail the flavor type of thing.
Right. What drove the? Because recently y'all have been going through a rebranding on the core side. What was the driver behind doing that? Did you? Because the old label is pretty classic and it's nice, clean looking. The new
Yeah.
labels look fantastic as well. I'm just kind of curious. What was the driver behind wanting to rebrand?
Well, part of it was time. It was about 5 years. I feel like just about every 5 years you need a little bit of a refresh because the market does change quite a bit.
Hmm.
Our brand has created a great culture, and we have many ambassadors, athletes, that are following our brand and kind of living our crush it lifestyle motto. And so we wanted to make it more accessible to people, like the dark carbon fiber, kind of hardcore look. I always liked, right? But that was great when we were, doing well in natural bodybuilding, but we're so much bigger than that now. We wanted to make it more accessible. So we used elements of the old labeling, like the carbon fiber, but we took it to a white carbon fiber. One of the big things that we didn't have on our old labels that always hurt us was we didn't have flavor icons, right? And so we've designed the label to make sure that when you look at the label, you're like, man, that looks delicious, right? Because we all know how important flavor is these days.
Correct.
And so it was just the right time. And given everything else that we had going on, like last year, a lot of my focus was on arms race nutrition to get that up and running. And so, at the end of last year, we really put all new product production on hold, all this stuff to kind of work through the existing inventory. I mean, we had, I don't know, 6 figures in label inventory sitting around, because you buy a lot at a time because they're much cheaper to run many at a time.
Right.
And so we just had a ton of labels. So like we kind of stopped innovation, which was okay at the time because I was focused on kind of arms race and all the stuff we had going on then. And so like that's why it's really been my focus this year, and that's why we've been dropping so many kind of cool new formulas. Is now there's everything is kind of stabilized on the arms race side. I can focus back again on this rebrand, and it was really just time, and there was a lot of updates that I wanted to make. And so we spent, just like we beta tested our products, we beta tested labels for months. I mean, I'm talking months, many different label manufacturers. And I thought we were never going to get what we wanted. Some people might say it's just the label, but man, the label is so important. And we were really, really happy with the direction we went and the manufacturer we went with and how things ended up. But that was quite a process, but we had to get it right the first time. Yeah.
And y'all have been steadily releasing products this year amidst the Corona pandemic hysteria, whatever you want to call it, that's been going on. Did it ever enter in your mind to say, maybe we should tap the brakes on this and not pursue this aggressive release schedule? Or has business been pretty, status quo as usual?
Well, there's a couple things with that. Is like we had to launch some of these products because we were out of the old products, right? So like if we wanted to even be in business, we had to do it. But my mind is kind of two opinions here. I'm very happy that we had all this stuff going on because our business has still been steady, right? At the same time, I'm like, man, what would it have been without all of this, right? Because over the past couple years, Core's direct-to-consumer business has really, really grown, and that has a lot to do with that community I spoke about and with the brand. And that is really kind of what has saved us during this time period. It's been quite remarkable, the growth that we have seen internally of our direct-to-consumer business. Because right now, we own a chain of retail stores in Virginia. We have 9 stores here. Our own retail stores dropped to, at one point in time, operating at about 30% revenue of what they were doing. And now we're back up to probably, and still on a limited schedule, but we're about up to about 65% of what, maybe 70% on a good day of where we would be if it wasn't for this, pandemic. So that just shows that retail is down everywhere. So we also have a really large wholesale business on the Core side, which is way down. Well, I wouldn't say way down, but it's definitely not where it would be otherwise because retailers just aren't buying. I mean, I know as a retail owner myself, we've really tightened up our buying. Now, obviously, we're buying a lot of Core and all that, but really expanding brands and bringing in a bunch of these exotic products and stuff like that, we're just not doing at the time. We're focusing on functional foods and, some immunity stuff that people are asking for and all the new Core, stuff. So, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, I'm really glad that we're going through it now because like I said, it's really helped our business through this tough time. But man, I'm just kind of curious to see what it's going to do coming out of this because I really want to continue to get it into everyone's hands because I think we've come up with some awesome products this year.
Well said. With the nutrition corners, does that now running a retail business is different than running a supplement brand?
Oh, yeah.
Does that give you any insight into consumer trends, and does that play into deciding which products y'all might release across either Merica Labz Core or Arms Race?
Yeah, we have our own little experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thought experiment that we could do in our store. So
exactly,
absolutely. Like when we look to, especially with having 9 stores in different geographical areas, so we can look at when we were launching, we launched our new Core ISO this week. Mm-hmm. What flavors do we want to bring out? So we can look at our top selling Core ISO or our isolates in our store, like the All Max and the Roll One and these other brands. And we can find out that, chocolate peanut butter is always a top seller. We didn't have a chocolate peanut butter before. So guess which product we're going to work on? Chocolate peanut butter in the ISO when we bring it back. So yeah, there is a ton of data that we look at pretty carefully there. And seeing the trends. And to be honest with you, the retail setting was the main impetus for Merica Labz back when we launched in January 2017, because we were finding a lot of people that came into our retail store. Now our guys and our managers are trained to give them what we call the Nutrition Corner experience, where they should be engaging with these customers. But some customers just don't want to be engaged with.
Right.
So they would just walk up to the pre-workout with the clown with the eyes being gouged out and, like some crazy skull on it or something like that. They'd buy it one time. Well, they would never come back and buy it again because they had such a crappy experience. Mm-hmm. And so, they were driven completely 100% by the marketing. So the idea behind Merica Labz, obviously think back to that time period when Trump was just getting elected. There was a very, it was just kind of like the patriotism and the, just the nature of the environment was perfect for the brand. Mm-hmm. And we're like, man, we can do a marketing driven brand, but stick to the same principles that we do at Core, so that when they buy it for maybe a tongue-in-cheek label or an eye-catchy label, they'll come back and continue to buy it because of the quality of the product.
Right.
And so Merica Labz was 100% born out of basically our own retail setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when y'all first launched that, we taste tested the proteins, and those were y'all were one of the first companies to even use inclusions in there, which was really awesome. And the badass flavorings, the texture was great. Yeah, so when did the idea for inclusions come in there? Was that something that maybe a manufacturer said, hey, we've got this new food technology we're working on, and y'all maybe want to try it out? Or did y'all have a roundtable decision?
So for Merica Labz, the theme from day one was America, never big enough. Actually, that's our slogan that we have on our thing. So our pump product was very simple, but it had 6 grams of citrulline and 5 grams of Hydromax, 5 grams of betaine. Yep. So it's basically like double clinical dosing on every ingredient, right? Nothing, like America, like big cars, big trucks, big houses, just big everything. And
right.
So over the top. And so that was kind of our thinking along the lines of the Patriots way with the inclusions, because inclusions are not something we would do on the Core side, because Core is known for having great tasting products, but they're very, and I hate to use this term, but very clean, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're very, clean. We're not going to put marshmallows in, Core, whatever product we're going to do. So it was kind of like it would create a protein. And we didn't have just a 5-pound whey on the Core side. So it would create a protein that wouldn't necessarily directly compete with our own already existing protein SKUs. Mm-hmm. And so having kind of the crazy outlandish, putting chocolate chips and marshmallows and, cereal and all that stuff in the product really would make it stand out and very much align with the kind of the theme of America.
Mm-hmm. With you mentioned that Core just released their ISO protein this week. Was there any thought to, so y'all have the regular Core Pro, which is a blend. What made y'all want to release just an isolate? Is there any thought or concern that maybe the sales of one could cannibalize sales of the other, or there's not really that factor at play?
So we had Core Pro, or a version of Core Pro and Core ISO now for numerous years.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we do sell a lot of Core through our retailers, our own retailers as well. And, we're kind of driven also by demand. Like we were finding that people were buying blends and they were buying ISOs. I mean, at core, we have a meal replacement. We have a gainer, which I'll probably discontinue with the rebrand. We have a blend. We have an isolate, and we have a post-workout all-in-one, which has an isolate with other stuff. So there really was a market for all of that, and we were having customers come into our stores and literally have 5 different types of protein. And at the end of the day, I have 5 different types of protein in my closet. And this year, in about 2 weeks, we're launching our vegan product. So there really is, they're just different market segments, and different, people are looking for different things. And so we want to keep our brand complete. At the end of the day, if no one else buys it, we have a bunch of retail stores of our own, and we have a large direct to consumer business. So we will try to get to those consumers, what they're looking for. We want to be kind of a one-stop shop, because for the core side, we have, 100 SKUs or something like that. And that's kind of what we wanted to be is, we want to provide, the highest quality product in pretty much every category you can think of. And we want to create clients, not just customers. And what I mean by that is we want people to literally use multiple of our products and really understand and appreciate what goes into our brand. And then we feel like they're more of clients as opposed to a customer, which is just transactional. A client is much more relational, right?
Correct.
And so that's really what we want to do. And that's why we've kind of expanded the way we have and have so many different, options, really.
Gotcha. What are some of the challenges that are unique to running a retail business compared to a supplement brand?
Staffing, for sure, right? Because at the end of the day, our stores, which do the best, have the best people, the superstars in it, the people that are super passionate about what they do. And so finding those superstars, and retail is a grind, right? So like you have to appreciate the retail grind. So finding those superstars is probably the biggest challenge, because at the end of the day with retail, you won't be successful unless you're providing an experience, and the people are really coming to see who's working that store, not just to buy a product. They can go on Amazon and buy a product, right? They want to have a whole experience when they go there. So if you don't have superstars in your stores, you're going to be hurting. And so getting the superstars and keeping them happy and creating a career path for them is probably one of the biggest challenges. And so we've put a lot of time and effort and thought, myself and our general manager, Carl Fradia, who runs the stores. We're just about to roll out an entirely new compensation package and bonus structure and all that stuff for our managers. But then the corona hit, and now, we just kind of moved to survival mode. And a lot of that had to do around, the 10 years of experience we have in retail, and understanding that the young 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old who's working in these stores might have a different mindset than Carl and I do at 40. And so we've kind of learned that and appreciated, and I don't want to say it's the millennial mindset, but some of it is that, right?
Right.
And it's not bad. I don't want to use millennial in a derogatory manner. It's just different from my mindset and Carl's mindset of, we're like, just do it because it's going to make your store better, when today the millennials won't do anything unless they get a gold star or they're compensated. When at the end of the day, you will be compensated for it, because your store will perform better because you're doing things but unless, they're paid for every second of their time, and, it's just a different mindset. It's because that's how they were raised. Right. And so we were shifting to a new pay structure to kind of reward that and encourage that. But then we had to kind of put that on hold. But by far, it's staffing.
Yeah. Identifying key players in the crucial positions. With you mentioned functional foods are growing more in the Nutrition Corner stores. Is there one aspect? Is it more like protein bars, or is it more protein snacks, where it's like, or the beef sticks like Merica Labz has coming out? What segments do y'all see are growing as far as functional foods?
Um, I think it's everything, right? Like
Hmm.
we have some of the weirdest functional foods. I mean, you get gummies, I mean, the amount of like healthy options is kind of crazy. The sky's the limit. So we've taken to approach that we as brands will not bring out functional foods unless we think we can do something that's unique or better than what's already out there.
Hmm.
It would be super easy for us to do a protein bar, but we've been working on a protein bar now for well over a year, and we literally still have more samples coming in tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just until we get it right, until we think it's better than what's out there, we're just not going to do it. I mean, the sky's the limit on the functional food, right? And so we have beef sticks, we have energy drinks. Really,
Right.
we consider a functional food on the Merica Energy side. But our next, we have two ventures that we're working on. One is a protein bar, which we were originally going to do under Merica, but now I think we're thinking of doing it under Core,
Hmm.
and we've been working on that forever. And the other one is, well, actually, I won't even tease that yet. Although I did it on my own podcast the other day. But
Hmm.
basically, small batch protein balls that are custom made.
Cool.
We would do like limited drops, and drop them just direct to consumer to start.
Hmm.
Kind of like My Cookie Dealer and Big Fat and Ugly Cookie, where they do these cookie drops, and
Yeah.
they're ridiculous. Like people, I don't know who buys this stuff, but like they spend $50 on these massive cookies, and they sell out. They move like, you know, I don't know how many thousands of cookies in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So we are taking the approach, and I'm actually thinking it's going to happen within the next couple months. Is we're going to do we call them dirty balls, but they're these little protein balls. They're actually all going to be made with our own protein. So like they're all going to be use proteins that are from our brands,
Hmm.
and we're going to do them as limited drops. Kind of like first come first serve. And
Right.
in fact, within the next year, we're probably moving facilities, and we're going to be building out our own facility. We are going to build in like a full production line for it over the next year. We have a lot of fun creating that stuff here,
Hmm.
and I think there's a huge market for it. And you just kind of have to have kind of a unique spin on things. And, but I think it's crazy the amount of functional food that we sell now,
Hmm.
especially like during the coronavirus. That's all people were really buying is functional food.
Yeah.
There's popcorns and there's gummies and I mean, you
Yeah.
name it. So, the sky's the limit. But for us, again, it comes back to the main theme is we're only going to use products or create products that we want to use as well.
Hmm.
So, there's a lot of crappy protein bars out there, and that's just not us.
Right. The Dirty Balls reminds me of Sweaty Balls, that old Saturday Night Live skit with
Totally.
Alec
Well, I can't
Baldwin.
wait till we do a launch video on it. It's going to be awesome.
With the protein bar, if I can drill down a little bit more on that, there's very different types of protein bars on the market. You have a more natural kind, which is like the outright bar. You've got a glorified candy bar, which is kind of like the Sin-Fit, where it tastes just like a candy bar, but it's got some whey protein in it, so it's got that illusion of being a little bit better for you and a little bit less sugar. Then they have like kind of the old throwbacks, like the Combat bars and the metric ones and all that. Do you know, or would you be okay sharing what kind of style you're all going for?
So the reason why we're leaning more towards launching the bar under Core as America than Merica. At first, we were going to launch under Merica because we already are in the functional food space there. So like it would be easier for us to kind of piggyback that, and like with our distribution lines,
Right.
We can slot that in quickly. But for Merica, to be honest with you, for me in my mind, for Merica, it's 30 grams of protein, glorified, candy bar, over the top, like candy on top, just ridiculous type of bar, right? Like that's so Merica. So like we might do that at some point. That's not our focus right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what Mark has done with the outright bar is great. It's not rocket science, right? Like he's using whole foods, right? Like we've been working on a whole food bar for many years, and so the bar approach that we're taking is more of again, I hate using this term, but a clean bar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a whole food based bar. Some of the things we won't be using is, we won't be using artificial sweeteners. We won't be using fake fibers, which honestly, a little of that isn't bad, and it really, really helps the texture. And part of the reason why our process has taken so long is we refuse to compromise on these things.
Hmm.
And so, we are going for a more whole food based product. Some of the flavors will have nut butters, but they're not going to be like 100% nut butter based. Where, I mean, outright bars are great, but like everyone tastes like peanut butter to me. They kind of all taste the same. We wanted something a little bit different than that. We also wanted more protein. Like again, 5 grams of protein isn't going to make or break you, but really, I'm not eating a protein bar with 15 grams of 15 grams of protein and 17 grams of fat and 20 grams of sugar. Right? To me, that's not something I would use. So we've set our targets differently. 20 grams of protein, 10 sugar at most, and no more than like 12 grams of fat. So we've set pretty tough guidelines when you're not using a couple of the ingredients that I said, when you want to make it taste amazing, when you want to have a phenomenal texture. And now you get the sense of why it has taken us so long to get there. We think we're right on the doorstep. And it's taken some unique engineering, and to be honest with you, this is something that a lot of people don't do, is, we have some staff here that are actually creating the formulas ourselves, and we do our own baking and testing here. Obviously for mass production, we're going to be working with a large bar manufacturer,
Right.
but a lot of it is we kind of perfect it here. We give the formula to our bar people, as opposed to the other way around. A lot of brands will go to a bar manufacturer and say, hey, I want to make a protein bar. And, here's a couple guidelines, go. And it's all on them.
Right.
So we tried that approach in the beginning, and it just was unsuccessful. You might even be able to see them back there. I have boxes of bars from some manufacturers that they just miss the mark every time. And so we've kind of taken it over, ourselves. And that's the approach that we're going to take. So I don't really have a timeline for that. Again, I'm really crossing my fingers that the next sample is going to be pretty close.
Gotcha. Because navigating the contract manufacturing is a bit of a minefield. Is it that same way with bar manufacturers? Are there as many different options to choose from, and is it hazardous trying to pick the right one?
Sure, not as many. There's definitely not as many, but there are a lot. And I think bars, right now is a good time because everyone's kind of shutting down, where we're pushing forward on all innovation fronts.
Right.
So some charge a shit ton of money, excuse my French, for R&D work, right? So we've gone down that route. We've spent many thousands of dollars in R&D per flavor, right, with certain bar manufacturers, right? And at the end of the day, it's a sunk cost. It's gone. They would credit you back on your first order, but like the one manufacturer on the West Coast that we were working with, they haven't nailed it. So that money's just gone, right? Because they couldn't do it. And that's when we kind of took R&D in-house a little bit. And then there's other bar manufacturers that don't have a R&D cost. But the problem is getting on their schedule, right? Getting on their line, because at least leading up to the COVID-19, everyone was booked out, right, forever, right? They weren't even taking on new business, so it was really hard. We're in a better situation now, and we are actually working with one of those manufacturers that, at least for us, are not charging an R&D, fee. It makes sense because some bar manufacturers, you could have some small companies that just want to get some samples done and kind of waste their time and are not going to commit to these large orders. So I get it. It's just it just kind of stinks.
Yeah. With Merica Labz, and y'all did the beef sticks. What was the driver, the inspiration for that? Obviously, Slim Jim, people will think of that, or some other kind of beef jerky or thing. So walk them through that, because the flavors are really unique, and I've heard Justin over at Supplement Snoop rave about how good and addictive these things are.
Again, this goes back to we were looking to get in the functional food space. We wanted to do something that we all enjoy and we eat. So I would eat ostrom a lot. But I'll be honest with you, ostrom tastes like dog food. The texture's terrible. I eat it because the macros are good and they're convenient, right? So you eat maybe a protein bar with an ostrom, you're getting, 30 some grams of protein, pretty low fat. It just makes it work. So we wanted to come up with a different option, because really on the market, there aren't that many options. So there's You got Ostrom, which has good macros but tastes like dog food, and then you have Slim Jim, which has more fat and carbs than it does protein.
Right.
So we wanted to create a happy medium. So all of ours has 13 or 14 grams of protein, and 4.5 fat. So there's a little bit of fat in there, more than like an Ostrom, to give it kind of more of a juicy texture. And then, like our jalapeno pineapple is my favorite by far. It has chunks of pineapple and jalapeno in it. And we wanted to create a product that was a better experience than what was on the market, and we feel we did that. Now, I'll be honest with you, that is a very low margin product. It's a very difficult product. That process took us like 10 months. It's not like you can just go and run samples of it, right? Like it's a massive, every time we get samples, we literally get a box of beef sticks that like 50 pounds of beef, right? It's ridiculous. And so like we just got 4 new flavors in here, and we didn't really like any of them. We had to, they were good, but they weren't up to our standard. And so we wanted to combine some and change some, but like now we got to go back onto the waiting game until we can run those samples again. Cause it's a certain cut of beef. It's a certain leanness of beef. And, they're not always doing that for their suppliers. So, the next round of samples won't come until we're probably in our own manufacturing production run again, so that we can use our beef and just change the, flavors and, the stuff that goes into it. So it is a massively complex process, and it was one of those things. It's just, some of this is just fun, right? Like, it's a challenge, and I like creating new things. Like I never thought I'd be bringing beef sticks to the market if you asked me, 10 years ago. But it's a new challenge, right? And we enjoy that. And so like that's the same thing with like the Dirty Ballz. Like it's going to be a new challenge, a new enterprise. It might be wildly successful, and it might not be. But I'm okay with that, because it's kind of I'm all about the journey. It's not necessarily, I'm not trying to get rich quick or anything here. I really enjoy what we do and the journey of bringing new products to market. I just love the process. So we'll see.
Gotcha. Let's transition now to discuss Arms Race, because you've got the nutrition corners. You've got 9 locations in that. You've got Core, which has been successful. You've got Merica Labz, which has become successful. You decide to add yet another brand into the fold. Do you not enjoy sleep? Is that what's going on, or are you bored? Walk us through the why you wanted to start, or what the opportunity was to start there, and I guess why you decide to make an exclusive partnership with GNC for it.
Yeah, so a couple things. I want to do one big thing every year. It's just kind of my thing, and so this started in 2016. So in 2016 we started. We opened 4 retail stores in 1 year, which I really don't advise doing. It's it's very stressful and it's hard. In 2017 we launched Merica Labz. In 2018 we launched Merica Energy, which was again another massive project. And the amount of it was just so different. Like energy drinks is a whole other ball game in terms of manufacturing and the amount of capital you need and all that.
Right.
And then in 2019 it was Arms Race. And so, I was friends with Julian, and we were actually courting Julian for Core for quite some time. But he was at a position in his own career where, he was with Optimum Nutrition. He was with Bodybuilding.com. I mean, he was getting offers, 10 grand a month offers, just salary to just basically, promote a certain product, right? Like not do much.
Yeah.
And he was at a point where he's like, he didn't want to jump from brand to brand again. He loved what we stood for at Core and what we were doing. And so like, we just had a discussion, and we were like, he's like, well, would you ever think of doing another brand? Because at the end of the day, he wanted to have something more tangible to hold on to and not just be an athlete. So he wanted to be an equity partner, and which I think was the right move for him at that time, given his path, right? And so I said, sure, I'm down for that. Let's talk about it. And he had a strong brand of his own in terms of like his own gym and his own vibe and his own look. And so I was like, man, we can, our other partner Kenton Engel, does a lot of the marketing, and we're like, man, we can come up with a great, there's just a great vibe and a great brand here. And so, we worked out the details. He was, again, being courted by a number of other people to basically run his brand. And it was just a great fit. And so we launched June 26th, June 25th, direct to consumer. And literally the next day, June 26th, I think, we drove to the headquarters of Pittsburgh because I already had a relationship with GNC on the Merica stuff for some things. And so, I kind of pitched the brand a couple months before, and we set up a meeting for right around launch date, and they loved everything about it right off the bat. And I said, hey, like, there's a potential for an exclusive here. If you guys are interested, but you need to get behind it immediately because, everyone's emailing me of like, we already have a pretty big distribution chain set up with the other brands. We could have very easily put it anywhere. So they jumped on it right away. And it's been great so far. So we are direct to consumer, we're international, and then we're with GNC. And, some people right now are we know more about the insides of GNC than probably your average supplement expert
person
out there. This has been tough, and everyone's saying bankruptcy, all of that. I don't know if I want to go on record saying anything, but because I don't want to eat my own words. But I am cautiously optimistic that this has accelerated their already existing plans. They understand that GNC as a brand, there is no other stronger supplement brand out there as GNC.
Right.
They also realized that 10 years ago, the best way to get in front of as many people as possible is open as many stores as possible. Today, it's different. Right. And so they were in the middle of a transition, reducing their retail footprint, focusing more on the digital side. That's why brands and partnerships with Arms Race, which is a digital first really brand, social brand, influencer brand, has been, really good for them. And so this whole COVID-19 thing has accelerated has brought the finish line closer to them in terms of getting to where they want to be. Because of just how it's affected everyone. And so I'm really cautiously optimistic coming out of this that, it's going to be a better situation for GNC. Now, obviously, like there have been some bad things. We had some massive launches in GNC get pushed off and some POs get pushed off and all of that, which made things complicated, but we're working through all of that. And, I'm cautiously optimistic. That'll be the theme of this, that going forward, it's going to continue to be a great partnership for Arms Race. I mean, at the end of the day, the decision that we had to make is, listen, on the wholesale side, like our national sales director sits like right next to me here. And, he's like racking his brain, pounding the wall to get a $500 order once a month from some of these retailers who they want like 30-day terms, and then their credit card bounces. And it's just like, or we could have a 7-figure deal right off the bat, shipped to one location or 4 locations. I mean, some people are like, you're crazy for going to, I was like, what are you talking about? Like we don't need a sales team, we don't need all that other stuff. We can drop ship directly from manufacturer. So like for us, it was really a no brainer, right? Like, because otherwise then we'd have to build out the whole sales team and, all of this other stuff. And it's just, it was an easy decision for us, and I think it was a good decision.
Excellent. Yeah, it's interesting because you'll hear all the negative stuff like GNC's profits went down, or they're closing X number of stores. And the same thing with bodybuilding.com. You always see, all you ever hear is the negatives associated with these behemoths in the industry, but they still keep chugging along. I mean, the first places people think of when to go buy supplements most often is either, a giant retailer like bodybuilding.com or a brick and mortar GNC. If you don't want to have to wait for something to arrive in the mail, then you're probably going to pop into one of the, either the mom and pop stores or, any other kind of brick and mortar retailer.
Yep. And I mean, and I think that, like before GNC would go bankrupt, because of what I mentioned earlier, how strong that brand is, there is still tons of potential there that I would think some venture capitalist or somebody was going to come in and would gobble them up before going bankrupt, in my opinion.
Right.
The debt issue is definitely an issue there, but again, I think there's a lot of interest from investors out there that see the long-term potential in the brand of GNC.
When you were having the negotiations with GNC, are y'all allowed to carry arms race in the nutrition corners too, or is it since you own those stores, it's okay to kind of do that?
So I definitely put that. I made that front and center in the exclusivity contract, and that is an extension, as we consider it, is like a direct to consumer.
Yeah.
Right, because I am the 100% owner of the nutrition corners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, we have 9 stores. Our online retail is not. We're not a bodybuilding.com, that's for sure, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't an issue really for them. Now, in fact, I mean, a lot of the GNC employees in Virginia will come to our stores to shop. It's kind of funny. So they didn't really mind.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a big deal.
Gotcha. With the nutrition corners, you can kind of decide where you want to slot your brands and products, and you can put them front and center. When you're dealing with a national retail chain like GNC, how do you go about jockeying for position on the shelf, or how they display it, or I guess not convincing, but encouraging the reps that they have on site there to say, hey, our products are really good. We've got XYZ, research to back it up, and all of those things.
It's definitely a process, right? Mm-hmm. So we were the largest new brand opening order launch that they've ever done. So even like Ghost, right, Alani, like they'll bring them in on small POs mm-hmm. and start trickling them out and see how it turns, right? Like ours was bigger than that because they just knew it was going to be successful. Now, luckily, that could also have been very dangerous because you could get thrown into a ton of locations, a lot of SKUs, and not move. And that's like the worst thing that you wouldn't want that as a brand owner, even though you have a big PO and payday up front. Mm-hmm. It's just a nightmare. So you got to make sure that the product is moving. So when we first launched, there was some terrible product placement. I mean, it was like bottom shelf, there would be a protein here, like all the way down at the bottom. And then, over in this other area, there would be like the 2 pre-workouts, and some stores would have like one flavor, and just like, it was a mess, but we moved well enough and continued to move, and they understood the long-term potential that all of that is getting trued up or cleaned up. And so in May, and again, things got pushed a little bit, but we were supposed to have our own wall block. While you walk into GNC, you see the Ghost wall and the Alani wall and whatever. So we were supposed to have our own arms race wall, or we don't have that many SKUs. So like maybe it would be a half a wall. Mm-hmm. So that was supposed to happen in May, but it's a process, man. I would say that yes, we had to sell, right? Like we had to sell the strength of our brand and all of that. But at the end of the day, if they don't see it and they're not feeling it, it's working with somebody like GNC, like Vitamin Shop. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It really isn't, right? Because at the end of the day, if you go in there big and then you don't move, you'll just get thrown out, right? And mm-hmm. they either say, GNC has built, technically almost $1 billion brands, but they've also destroyed many brands. So it's where a lot of brands go to die, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to take it slow. And so for us, it was definitely, even though it was a big rollout, it was not where we ultimately wanted to be. And now it's taken months and months and months until we're finally starting to get the placement that we want. So you really kind of have to earn it, right?
Mm-hmm. When you're formulating the products for arms race nutrition, so we covered with Merica Labz, it's, bigger, better, America, stars and stripes, all of that good stuff, over the top. When you're formulating arms race nutrition stuff, how do you juxtapose that to the way you formulate stuff for core?
Same principles. Like that's key, right? Non-proprietary blends, efficacious doses, formulations based on, sound science. Mm-hmm. And so that was uncompromising in terms of what we were going to do. And it was aligned with what Julian wanted. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of what products we bring out, a lot of that is driven by Julian. What speaks to his brand? What does he use? Because at the end of the day, if he can't sell it, if he can't talk about it, then it's not going to move. And, he's always talked about a creatine product, which we knew we were going to bring out right away, and then a multivitamin and joint health are things that people really need. Yeah. And so that was the joint health and multi would not have been the 5th product that I would have brought out, but it was in line with what he was already speaking to. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good example that, again, we wanted to put out the best product or the best value products for where they were at. And so like a lot of Julian's following, we looked at it, and a lot of them are younger males, right? So 22-year-old, they might not have a huge budget. So Core's Multi is $30. Core's Joint Health is $40. So if you want a month's supply of those, you're going to be spending $70.
Yeah.
Most young guys that are following Julian don't want to spend $70 on that. They want to spend it on a pre-workout.
Correct.
So, but how could we encourage them to get the benefits and start early with the supplementation that is more of a just general health, right?
Yeah.
And still make it accessible. So we created a multivitamin Joint Health all together in one for $30 for a month's supply. Now, obviously, if somebody says like, people ask, what's the best or what's the better? I mean, it really depends on so many things.
Correct.
For the value, it is the best multivitamin and joint health product out there. Now, it's not as good as Core Flex and Core Multi together, but that's not even a fair comparison, right? Yeah. So we're looking a lot at, the demographics of the people who are buying the product. But at the end of the day, like the formulation, like if you look at Harness, the pre-workout or Daily Pump, those are formulated super similar to how we would formulate from Core,
right? Just
slightly different ingredients, different flavors. A lot of the flavors are driven by Julian, and like coming out with tart candy strings, which is like his favorite candy, which is like sweet tart ropes, doing things like that. A lot of that is has to be very consistent with his brand. And like, that's the really cool thing about the brand. Everything is like vertically integrated with the brand in terms of the flavors, the formulation, the story, the labels, the look, everything is vertically integrated with Julian. And that's really important. So again, principles are the same. It's a slightly different take on it, but very similar.
What do you look for as, the grand poobah of core and nutrition corners and all that with bringing on a new athlete? Because this is just a debate that I sometimes have internally, or I talk about with Justin every now and then, where does the influencer-driven model, is it really beneficial for brands? And I guess it's going to be a case-dependent situation where some athletes might move a lot of products, some may not. What do you look for when you're considering adding somebody into the fold of either Core, Merica, or Arms Race?
So for me, I don't want to just sign an athlete that's never used our products, right? Like Julian was using our products. And in fact, why I first reached out to him is he ordered on our website, right? Like he ordered a bunch of stuff, like $400 worth of product. And I was like, at one point. So like, and I knew he was using it from years before because I sent him stuff earlier, but I knew he continued to use it. Yeah. So like, I want people to understand, and be aligned with our own mission and our values, right? Like I'm not just going to pay some shill, some big booty hoe on Instagram to, sell our product. It's not consistent with our brand.
Right.
Like we just signed a new athlete for Arms Race, Mrs. Sweendog. And, because we wanted to bring a female into the fold, and she was perfect. She's a hardcore trainer. She's not like an Insta hoe, she posts great content, has, 600,000 followers. It just matched with the brand. So it has to fit with the brand. You can throw big dollar contracts at anyone, but like at the end of the day, people are going to see through that. But I do think having athletes and people, one of our biggest supporters, and we've done some collaborations with him, is Paul Revelia. He's not, he's got great coaching and he's very trusted. I wouldn't say he's a huge name, but he is so valuable to us. And that's why we're putting his name on the vegan protein, because at the end of the day, he's allergic to whey. So like, this product's for him. So we put his name on the product. And so you don't have to have 1 million followers to be super influential. But I think influencers are really important for a brand, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, like the bar is like, you have to have great products to just sell anything, right? And then it's how the people get connected to the brand, and they get connected through the people, whether it's the owner of the business or your salespeople or your athletes or the mission that you're selling. So it's all about the connection. And so having influencers, I think, is really important. I mean, you look at the top brands today, they all have quote unquote influencers.
Right.
There's really not many no named or no face, I should say, big brands out there. I think it's really important.
Do you think I guess as part of the millennial mindset that you touched on earlier, people want to know more about what's going on behind the scenes. They want to know who are the people actually pushing the buttons of the company, who are doing the formulations.
Yep.
Do you like getting out in front that way and you know, discussing and meeting the fans, or would you rather be kind of like the wizard behind the curtain where it's the brand speaks for itself and we don't need to get all lovey-dovey, you know, mushy-gushy?
I like getting out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, quite surprisingly, I'm kind of if you know me and I know you, I'm very extroverted.
Yeah.
You know, in big crowds, you know, I say this to my wife all the time. Like I would, you know, like she'll be the one like making small talk. I don't like to do that.
Yeah.
I'll be like looking on my phone and there's no one texting me. I just want to not really talk to anyone. But through the years, I think I've really enjoyed meeting a lot of the people, and I think that has come with age and experience and appreciation, I think, because without all of those people, we'd have nothing, right? And so I guess it's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it's become more into my comfort zone, kind of the older that I get. And, you know, I do enjoy going out there now. Like, it is like a chore, right? Like, I got to make so many Instagram posts. I got to stay relevant. I got to do stories. Oh, I forgot to do some stories today. It's kind of like that. But, you know, I think it's really important for the brand. I think just the way the industry is today, and you have to have a social presence. And I've learned to enjoy it.
Gotcha. How do you go about balancing work and personal family life, trying to juggle that, be successful as a husband, as a father, and as an entrepreneur?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
It is.
So I view, you know, if you ask my wife this, it might be a different answer. I view balance as more of a longer term concept than a short term concept. Okay. So there might be periods of time where I need to go to Australia for 2 weeks. There's not much balance there. I'm literally working around the clock.
Right.
There might be periods of time where like I have to put in the long hours, right? But that is for more balance down the line. And so, you know, it is a very difficult thing, and I think I'm okay at it, but I could definitely get better.
No.
The one piece of advice that I think is so important, and again, this is more do as I say, not as I do, because I'm not great at this. It's being present, right? So like when you're with your kids or you're with your wife, you know, that's the time to be with them, right?
Yeah.
If you're with them and you're on your phone the entire time, you might as well not be there.
Right.
So, you know, this goes to our crush it lifestyle motto, right? It's giving what you're doing at the time 100% effort. It is that crush it lifestyle, right? So whether it's spending the time with your kids, give them your full attention. And then when you're working, give it your full attention. When you're in the gym, give it your full attention. And I think that's really important to allowing balance. Because sometimes a good balance might not be quantitatively in terms of total time. It is more qualitative in terms of, you know, I had a really good 15-minute sit down with my wife where we didn't look at anything. We actually talked eye to eye and spoke about real things.
Yeah.
That might be more valuable than 2 hours, you know, both sitting on social media, sitting next to each other. Right.
Right.
And so, you know, I think it's, sometimes it's quality over quantity in terms of time with that. And again, it is a longer term thing, right? Like I hope the sacrifices that I make, I might have to give up certain things now or so that I can have more later.
How do you feel about, do you give your kids any supplements? Or in what age, if you're not, would you consider it okay to do so?
Yeah, I mean, they take gummy multivitamins and they take protein powder. And my son is 6 years old, and he'll take whatever I take.
Yeah.
He wants it. So, like, my breakfast, my pre-workout meal is like half Honey Nut Cheerios, half Kix, little banana, and then pumpkin spice core ISO poured over top. And every morning, Dad, what's for breakfast? And I tell him the same thing. He's like, that's what I'm having. And so like literally, he's drinking pumpkin spice. I was like, you're not gonna like it's spice, right? Like, I don't really
Yeah.
think a kid would like pumpkin spice. Now it's an amazing flavor, but
Hmm.
so he loves it. I mean, literally, he'll eat cereal with pumpkin spice ISO on it at least twice a day, every day. And so like, like protein bars, my
Hmm.
kids eat protein bars,
Yeah.
whether it's an outright bar or some type of wafer bar or power crunch or whatever.
Hmm.
I'm all about moderation, right? Like, so like
Yeah.
the only thing that somebody could argue potentially, and I think it's complete crap, obviously, because I let my kids do it, is the artificial sweeteners. But
Hmm.
like the safety studies behind like sucralose, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Like,
Correct.
I'd much rather have them have some sucralose than a ton of like, refined sugar. And so, in moderation. But even my 3-year-old like eats protein bars. So again, it's moderation. Now they're not taking like Core Alpha or anything like that, right? Like Core Test,
No
like
Fury.
maybe
No
a couple
Fury.
more years before they get on that. But
You're not giving them nighttime scoops of a Core Fury or anything like that to
yeah,
keep them alive.
yeah, and no Core Z's, no Phenibut or anything to knock them out at night, right?
Yeah. Wow, good stuff, man. What's in tap for the rest of 2020 for the brands?
So we were just looking over our schedule. I mean, we have a ton of stuff going on. I mean, core. So on the arms race side, we got a big exclusive flavor launch. It's called Venice Beach, and the Daily Pump and the Harness pre-workout. That's a massive rollout. It's in every GNC. It's going to be around June 15th and direct to consumer then. So that's a really special flavor that we did with a special label.
Hmm.
And that's kind of a big deal for us. And then we're working on we just launched Stabilizing Clarity.
Yeah. Those are really cool
The other week.
formulas, by the way. I saw those. Justin and I were discussing those last week. I really like the spin y'all did on with
Yeah.
Clarity.
Yeah. And so like those are really cool. So we'll continue to promote and educate around that. And then we have a bunch of other flavor extensions and whatnot, throughout the year. Core is going to continue. Like, we're not slowing down at all. I mean, like, it's crazy the amount of stuff. We got the vegan coming up. We got the relaunch of an all new MRP. We're taking a different spin on that.
Hmm.
Our post workouts getting redone, a new spin on that with some new trademarked ingredients. We got Core Zone, which is our nootropic, some other flavor extensions, and our, other thing like new commodities are coming out. So like Core, you're going to continue to see craziness through the end of the year. Merica this year has taken a little bit of a, kind of like Core did last year, has taken a little bit of a backseat just because I can only really focus on so many things at once.
Right.
But you will see that was really only for the first half of the year. The second half of the year for Merica, we have a lot more. We have a special edition pre-workout called the A-Bomb series coming out. Some new flavors of our Supremos, our amino acid product. Really cool flavors. And so like Merica and some new Patriots Way flavors. So Merica is going to get more loving in the second half of this year. And then, obviously the protein bar and dirty balls has been a big focus of ours. So we're hoping that our balls will drop, here shortly. And also the bar, but again, the bar has to be perfect before we invest the kind of capital into running bars.
Right.
And so we think we're getting close. So yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, it's 2020 is a crazy year for sure for many reasons.
Yeah. Is it ever get cumbersome trying to juggle all the different brands with all the different SKUs? And then have y'all ever gotten because a lot of other companies will go and do limited edition, so they'll run like 250 or 500 units of a certain flavor, and then it'll be a flash sale and it's gone. Do y'all have any interest in doing that? Do y'all like that idea, or do you think it's more just kind of like
on the Merica side? We've done it,
right.
But it's been bigger. It's been bigger than 250. It's been a couple thousand units. So like we did. So the Red, White, and Boom is our flagship product. So that's got a set formula. We have 8 or 9 flavors of that product. They're all taste great. So the Boom and the Pipes are like our flagship products. And then last year, before the whole like DMHA crackdown, we did a kind of a throwback DMHA version of Red, White, and Boom, super high stim.
Right.
It was called the H-Bomb edition.
I remember
and
that.
So we had it in 2, flavors. It had a special icon on it. So we're going to do that again here, hopefully around July, August with the A-Bomb formula. And again, it's going to be in 2 flavors: Alpine Pew Pew, which is our Mountain Dew, and Wild Blue Yonder, which is like a berry goodness flavor. And so we have that formula. We're ready to go. Again, that's going to be more of like your stim junkie kind of like nootropic heavy, high impact,
Yeah.
heavy stim hitter formula. And that will be probably like a one and done as well. We run a couple thousand units. We, sell it out. Now, if there's a huge, so like on H-Bomb, we sold it out. We didn't plan on running it again, but there was such a huge demand for it that we ran a special edition on it. And then we did a throwback to the original formula before the DMHA thing, which, because it originally had DMHA in it, we did the Dick Punch flavor of the original Red, White, and Boom. And that has probably been our biggest, that was our all-time biggest and fastest seller, the Dick Punch flavor. I don't know what's with people wanting to. But anyways, the write-up on the side of it is classic. And so for the Merica side, we'll continue to do kind of limited edition, pre-workout runs. And I think there are some, on the core side, at least some flavor extension, limited edition stuff that we plan on doing.
Gotcha. Wrapping up here, give us a little insight into your personal supplement intake on a day-to-day basis, and how much caffeine do you go through? I have a
ridiculous YouTube video out there. It's like what Doug Miller really takes out there, and you got to read the comments. It's pretty funny, where I literally go over everything that I take. So, I break it down into kind of the basics. Multivitamin, I take vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, joint health product, is extensive. It's not just Core Flex. We have a Sys's commodity we throw in there on top. So there's a lot of that basic stuff. Prostate health, now that I'm 40 years old, right? So there's a lot of basic health, and I have, Core Greens and Guts and Glory in here. So there's a lot of that basics. And then it's all about peri-workout nutrition. So my pre-workout isn't just a pre-workout. I use HMB, I use taurine, like commodities, because we have them for our brand, right?
Right.
Throw that in on top of a pump product and a stimulant product. And then intra-workout, I'm doing like Core ABC or Core Intra. Post-workout, a very specific protein, Core PWO. And so there's like the basics, there's the peri-workout, and then there's kind of like the natural test booster stacks, the natural anabolic stacks, which I love to run. And so we have the Big Papa stack, which is Core Alpha, Core Hard, Core Test. And so I will cycle on and off of those. We have Liberty Ballz on the Merica Labz side. We have now Stabilize on the Arms Race side. So, I try to cycle through those and use products that are significantly different in terms of the main active ingredient, but I'm always using something like that.
Gotcha. Awesome, Doug. Well, this has been a very engaging and enjoyable chat. Thank you for making time today. I appreciate it.
Sure, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
And this is the part where you can shamelessly plug and promote anything and everything Core, Merica, and Arms Race.
Well, I think you just nailed it right there. So, CoreNutritionals.com, MericaLabz.com, ArmsRaceNutrition.com, TheNutritionCorners.com. Most people probably listen to this know where to find me. I'm at Doug Miller Pro on Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active. But just going to keep chugging along this year. It's been a crazy year so far, but it's been fun.
Excellent. Awesome, Doug. Well, thank you very much, man. And y'all have a good one the rest of the day.
Sure.